Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, October 24th Project Jupyter IPython Developers Call. We are following an agenda in Dropbox paper, which is linked into the agenda. Go ahead and for the developers on the call who are giving updates, please update your section of the agenda. And the first part of the agenda is weekly news by organization, so feel free to click through there and read up on what's happening with all of the different sub-projects. And we will go ahead and get started with updates on Jupyter Notebook from Grant. We're skipping over Jessica for now. Whenever she's ready, we'll go ahead and insert her into the agenda.
Okay, so I don't have a lot of updates for Notebook, but there is one issue that I'd like to just get a read from everybody. It's an issue affecting Chrome users, probably code mirror related, but essentially the cursor inside of a text field, an editor field, is just disappearing for some people. I can't reproduce it. Ian said that he's seen this in Jupyter Lab as well. I have confirmed that it's not caused by Chrome extensions because people are disabling all their Chrome extensions and it's still happening. So yeah, if you have encountered this, let me know. Just weigh in with maybe some more information about it. And if anybody has any ideas right now, I would appreciate.
What's the exact behavior again?
So it sounds like as they're typing in the editor in the Classic Notebook using Chrome, the cursor disappears. So they're able to type text and everything, but the cursor's gone.
Do you know if it happens across operating systems?
It sounds like it's happening. It's for sure happening on OS X. And let me just jump in the issue and see if anyone's talking about Windows.
Well, if Ian says he's seen it, I think Ian normally uses Linux, so.
Okay. Yeah, so it seems like it's code mirror related. So I don't know if operating system would affect that, but
Ian
browser definitely affects that.
Ian specifically said it was on Mac OS that he saw it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, so it's just something to keep an eye out for because it's happening in Jupyter Lab as well. I'll do some
Ian
searching.
just said in the chat that he had not personally seen it. He was thinking that I had seen it. The issue I saw is similar but not the same. If I zoom to 90% on Chrome, it takes our 1 pixel border and doesn't show it, but it comes back at 80%. So 180% works, and in other browsers it works. So I think it's a different issue on Jupyter Lab.
It could be related though, because if these users are also potentially zooming by accident, that could be the cause.
Yep.
So zooming and running in incognito mode with no extensions enabled might be a good test. Zoom to 100%. There is a known bug in Chrome about off by 1 pixel, like not showing a 1 pixel border.
Makes sense. Yeah. All right, cool. That's helpful. And that's about it. Just triaging issues. Thomas is working on getting the Chinese translations that we have actually working in the UI, so that'll be cool when it's merged in. But that's about it for Notebook.
All right, thanks, Grant. So now I'll have updates on Jupyter Lab.
Okay. It's been a good part of last week re-releasing 028. We had some distribution problems. Data files in the distribution weren't being sent where we thought they were. So learning process there. And also watch mode. We were trying to use Webpack config to do it. Turns out there doesn't seem to be a way to do it with Webpack config the way we want. So instead, we implemented our own watch mode using just a file system watcher, the node file system launcher to do the job for us. So that should be bulletproof, hopefully, going forward. Also, there's an open PR changing our virtual DOM implementation for at least the core virtual DOM renderer that we use and our TSX files to use React as the implementation, which is the first step we need to bring in the VDOM renderer and the JSON tree renderer from the renderers repo. And then after that, we can change the rest of our VDOM instances to use React instead of the Phosphor ones going forward, now that we're no longer blocked on that. And Darian is going through updating our Jupyter Lab launcher to accommodate, instead of using raw JSON files, we're going to use, Sublime has a similar thing called a Sublime settings file. We're going to call it Jupyter Lab settings file. That is basically JSON plus comments. And so we'll be stripping out the comments and then validating it against the JSON schema on both the client and server end to make sure that your user settings are correct. So he's working on that. That should come this week. Anybody else got anything with Jupyter Lab? Okay, that's it.
Do you have any update on the CRDT work?
We are still going through implementation on that, and so the original CRDT only accounted for conflicts in raw text, but we have list maps and other containers, so working through what the conflict behavior is for those things is the current task.
Carol, you're muted.
How about for my benefit and the viewing audience, what is CRDT?
So the Google Drive and other implementation, I think Google Wave did the same thing, use operational transform for real-time collaboration. So there's an up-and-coming competitor to that, CRDT. The words for the acronym are escaping me, but essentially every edit is tagged with a username, and rather than relying on temporal changes to do the conflict resolution, it's guaranteed. Ian, help me out here. Conflict-free replicated data type. So you are eventually correct the same way with operational transform, but you're not relying on temporal things on the server to do that resolution for you. It's a known algorithm.
It's a set of data structures reliably build an interface for, and rely on their implementation taking care of the fact that they might be distributed across multiple nodes, but everyone is seeing something that is coherent or will become coherent in a way where everyone resolves to the same thing at the end. So to take care of that, at first we were just thinking strings because we were thinking about how you do this with text editors, but really we want to do this with a whole notebook, which isn't just strings. So there's multiple primitive types that need to be supported, and the holders of primitives are what we're calling containers. So lists and maps are things that also need to have the conflict resolution built into them, and that's all happening in Phosphor, and then we'll be building on top of that.
Right. So the client-side implementation will be done in Phosphor and make it so that a server really is just storing these edits and then can give them out to the consumers as needed. And one of the papers we read demonstrated the use of the CRDT with WebRTC and scaling up to thousands of users. And so they're just sharing all these edits amongst the users. And yep, so that's the current.
Thank you. That sounds cool.
Vector. Sure. Yeah.
And if you want a great conceptual introduction to CRDT, Rafe Levine, who wrote the XI editor, has a bunch of blog posts called Rope Science that go through it and talk about the efficiency improvements and sort of the maths underlying it. I can
it was
link to that.
Another similar blog post a couple weeks ago that prompted this, gave us the idea.
Yeah, most of the literature out there on CRDTs are in the context of text editors, so basically dealing with collaborative strings, more or less. So we have a couple unique challenges in that we basically need everything to be collaborative. So this includes strings, lists, maps, records, tables, those sorts of things. So there are other more esoteric conflict resolution schemes that are out there. You just have to dig to find them. So as far as I'm aware, this might be actually the first effort to combine all of these into like a unified system. There are some databases out there like the React database, which is written in Erlang, which uses lots of CRDTs, but most of those implementations are they live only on the server, and they're used to automatically resolve conflicts between different users of the database. So they're still applied in a transactional sense rather than in a real-time collaborative sense. So I'm not aware of anything that's out there that's trying to do what we're doing. So that might be cool to write a blog post about when we're done.
Okay. All right. So moving on from Jupyter Lab, Jessica, if you're ready, I think we'll jump back to documentation before the widgets update. Unless you're not ready, unless you're not on the call. Oh no, you're on the call. Jessica, last chance. Unmute yourself quick. Nope. Okay. All right. We'll catch up to, let me know when you're ready for updates on documentation, Jessica, and we'll just insert you into the agenda whenever you're ready. So Jason, do you want to talk about widgets?
Sure. We've been having a number of people contribute, and we've released several patch releases to the 7.0 widgets release, and fixed several various bugs. We've also had another person jump in and start to work on cleaning up the TypeScript code base, and we're iterating through one or two PRs, adding some more major features. So we're in the calm after the release, where we're just releasing a few patch releases and gearing up for something that's a little more major.
Okay, great. Carol, you want to talk a little bit about Jupyter Hub? I don't think Pete's on the call. Let me just double check. No.
Sure, no problem. Last week was sort of the week of workshops for Jupyter Hub and Binder. Min was doing an Open Dream Kit workshop at Simula, and from everything I've heard, that went really well. And he was experimenting with some new stuff, so that was cool too. And then several of us, Matthias, myself, UV, and Chris, were up at UC Davis for a few days, and we missed you. But we have some good stuff with the libraries gal at Caltech, so we'll be kind of jump-starting that at some point. But it was Titus Brown organized it, and it was a collaboration of a number of different scientists, library folks, and a few developers, but it was really a good cross-section, and it was very productive. We got some stuff with RStudio working in Binder, and Julia, and I believe widgets as well. So things are on track, and some point in the near future, we will be switching over from the old Binder to the new Binder. So we'll let you know once that happens. Thanks. And I'm on vacation next week, or starting later.
Yay.
Yay.
You mean in like 2 hours?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. We'll have a great vacation, Carol. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead. There is a good amount of background noise, but yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I'm having technical difficulty able to fix it with my phone. So on my end, I'm in the middle of working on trying to get the documentation for how to set up the blog as M has suggested. I would appreciate feedback from anyone who is a Medium blogger. So I'll be putting together a PR, and I'll post the PR there when it's ready.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else, Jessica, before we move on?
That's it for now. There's some other stuff in the pipeline, but no major news to report.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So next part of the agenda is the conferences and workshops. If you have anything that you're going to be attending in the next couple of months or the beginning of 2018, please add that to the list if you're speaking anywhere. We've also started a list of open calls for presentations and proposals. Currently PyCon is listed there, but if you hear of others, please continue adding to and building onto this list. And the last part of the agenda is really just a recap of all of our releases. So if you have anything, didn't really hear people talking much about releases in this week's updates, but if you have anything from last week or anything coming soon, please add that into the notes as a recap. And then the last thing before we sign off, actually, no, before we move on to that, is there any anything that we didn't cover or that isn't on the agenda that anyone wants to talk about or present to the group or to the community? Otherwise, we will move on to a proposal for future weekly meetings. Okay, doesn't sound like there's anything anyone else wants to cover. So Carol has a proposal for, we started talking about this last week, kind of thinking about or wanting to revisit what the goals of this weekly meeting are. And I think this is a good time to kind of talk through a proposal that Carol has. So Carol, do you want to just lead a little bit? Matthias
Sure.
is waving, but I don't think. Oh.
Typing.
Oh.
He's typing.
Oh, got it.
He'd like to contribute, and he's writing a document, but he has no mic. Okay.
Oh, got it.
So basically, it's been probably a good year now since we kind of switched up the structure of the meeting and how we were doing things. And really, this is more just a not something to do, but more something to think about right now, just in terms of, okay, are we meeting? Do we know what goals we have for this meeting, both in terms of community outreach and communication about what's going on with development to the greater world? And then also, given how we're sort of distributed across orgs, whether we're hearing enough or seeing enough of what other folks are doing. And once we know what the goals are, then I think maybe some small tweaks to the meeting would be in order. I threw one suggestion out of future content, which I always like seeing short demos of what other folks are working on. Like the discussion this morning about real-time collaboration was actually very helpful, but to see something new that's being done in Classic Notebook or something new that's being done with NB Convert or Binder or whatever might be a nice addition, not just for us, but also for the larger world out there. To keep this sort of scoped and length in terms of the discussion period, Anna raised a good point before we got on the call, which is, how do we kind of balance time versus effectiveness, since we don't want to be sitting here 2 hours, and we know from other conversations we easily could be. And I think it's really less to sort of solve the problems, or it's more to surface things and then come up with a few points of discussion and then kind of come up with a concrete next action. But the hope would be to maybe add a little interactivity to the meeting and a little higher value. But that's just my perspective. So feel free to delete it or whatever. I'm going on vacation, so.
Well, I think those are two great goals. You know, higher interactivity and more value. I think is a good place to start. So I think ideas on how to do that are, you know, highly valued. So what are your thoughts on next steps for this? Should we, I don't know, maybe maybe we should brainstorm. I wonder if it's valuable to, I like your ideas, but I wonder if it's valuable to just kind of come up with a list of ways that we could meet those goals of higher interactivity and increase value to the community, and think through like what makes the most sense.
Probably in terms of expedience, like if we could put together a Google form that just says, hey, these are what I think the goals are for the two things, just open-ended, very brief, like bullets, whatever, and then potentially anything you wanted to see. So, and then from there, kind of compile them and sort of come back and do like a 5-minute, hey, this is what we got from, and it should be anonymous, I think, as well.
Can it be anonymous in Google Docs?
I don't know. I figured some of you with Google Forms would know. I have no idea.
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, but not to create more work, but more just to get us thinking about it and moving forward incrementally, because I think a wholesale change is probably disruptive at this point. So that's why I was kind of trying to time down it 5 to 20 minutes, but it's up to everybody.
Well, so I've been absent for a bunch of meetings, so I'm not sure what the cadence has been, and I'm not sure if there was specific meetings that went really long and something like that. But you know, the ones that I've been able to get to recently have been pretty on target and get me out by my 12:30 meeting, in which I need to leave to in D-1 minute. Sorry about that. But an office hours concept that followed on directly after this, where basically we just had a rotation of someone that was going to be in there, and we would, you know who was going to be in there and offer kind of that office hours experience. And it might end up, you submit a question in advance and they moderate that or something. But, so if it was already dovetailing with this time slot, then there's a chance that people that were on the meeting, you'd announce what it is during the meeting, and then you could stick around for the office hours chunk after it. But otherwise, record it separately. You wouldn't have to come to the status meeting, because I think a status meeting is fantastically useful, really, because there's just so many moving pieces, especially if you're not down in the issues every day. But definitely plus one on more interactivity.
Okay. Anything else? I know Matthias has that document and we'll share that out. So I'm sure we'll get some more stuff from there. So yeah, definitely let's continue talking about this. So there isn't anything else on the agenda at this point. So I think we will go ahead and close out. Thank you for joining, and I hope you have a great week, everyone.